WWE actively working on title plans for Cody Rhodes. Plus tonight, Brock Lesnar defends the WWE Championship inside Madison Square Garden. Big plans for the WWE title happening tonight. Plus we have a title change on SmackDown. Sami Zayn's got a WrestleMania match confirmed. Pat McAfee's opponent for WrestleMania has also been confirmed. Plus we have an update when it comes to plans for this unified WWE Championship coming out of WrestleMania. All this and more in today's WWE News. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone's doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into today when it comes to the world of WWE on the road to WrestleMania 38. And let's start off talking about Cody Rhodes. Now, there's been a lot of chatter about Cody Rhodes in general recently. Now, there was a report from Cassidy Haynes from Bodyslam.net the other day. And got a lot of people talking, saying that the Cody Rhodes WWE talks had fizzled out and that the reason we haven't really heard anything about Cody and WWE for the last 10, 14 days or so is because he's had these conversations with WWE and they're not really going anywhere. Now, that isn't what Dave Meltzer is saying, so we're getting some conflicting reports because Dave Meltzer is saying that WWE is reportedly actively working on plans for the upcoming return of Cody Rhodes to the company. Now, Rhodes has been rumored to be headed back to WWE ever since he left AEW last month. And in an update, the Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that the WWE creative team is actively working on return plans for Rhodes. There's no time frame for Rhodes to return to WWE, but the Observer report notes that unless the deal falls through, Rhodes will be returning to the company soon. Now, there has been some speculation on WWE holding Rhodes' return off until the Raw after WrestleMania, which traditionally is the biggest TV show of the year for WWE. Now, nothing's been confirmed, but Rhodes' return on that Raw seems more likely than a return at WrestleMania 38 does right now. Now, it's believed that Brandi Rhodes will not be returning to WWE with her husband once he returns to the company. So it is a bit of a curious one when it comes to Cody Rhodes. I think that had the announcement not been made about Tony Khan purchasing Ring of Honor earlier this week, people have just assumed he's coming back after WrestleMania, he's coming back on the Raw after WrestleMania, and because of that, things are taking time. They're going a bit quiet because, as is every day in the world of professional wrestling, there's always so much news and so much stuff going on that, not that people forget, but it's just kind of an assumption now at this point, isn't it? That Cody Rhodes is going to end up in WWE. Nevertheless, when he does arrive, it's not going to be any less surreal, considering that, I mean, I was going to say like a year ago, but just a few months ago, we would have said absolutely no way is he going to go back to that company. So even still, just chatting about it now is surprising and very surreal, but I still don't. I mean, that report came out earlier this week, and this is why I say before the Ring of Honor stuff, because I'm not one of those people, and I know there will be people that will be like, once Tony Khan purchased Ring of Honor, see, I told you it was all a work. Yes, he was let go from AEW. Well, let go. Yes, him and AEW parted ways. Yes, that happened. Yes, that was real. But it was only because he's going to be signed to a Ring of Honor contract, and then he's going to book that territory because he wanted to book AEW, but Tony Khan books AEW. But now he can book Ring of Honor, and he can have his creative input on that product, and that's how he's going to stay within the AEW umbrella, all that kind of stuff. See, I told you it was work. I told you it was work. I told you it was work. I don't fall on that part of it. I don't. I do think at the time that the Cody Rhodes AEW split is very real. I do think at the time the assumption was he was going to go to WWE. And I still do think that's the case. I still do think, from what I've heard certainly as well, that, you know, once the AEW departure was done, he was going to WWE. I'm sure, well, if they're having creative plans being actively made for him, he's had discussions with WWE. He's in discussions with WWE right now, and he'll return to WWE at some point in the near future. As the report says, most likely after WrestleMania at this point, the Raw after Mania, they want to have that big moment, and that's going to be Cody Rhodes' return to the company. There is something, though, and I can see where people are coming from with this. There is something that you do look at this Ring of Honor stuff and you go, well, maybe it does change something, right? It could change something. Some of the reports did note, and again, this Cassidy Haynes report from Bodyslam.net said that with the WWE talks fizzling out, there was still some hope within those in AEW that maybe he would return to the company or return to the fold, and that would be the only scenario that I could see him returning now, is that if Tony Khan said, look, yeah, we were apart on money, and yeah, we were apart on you booking the company and being in charge of creative like you were in 2019 before I took over. And again, people can say Tony Khan, oh, he's an egomaniac, blah, blah, blah. He made the right decision to take over in late 2019 or have that final. Well, he had the final say anyway, but to take more control because some of the creative during that period wasn't very good. It wasn't great. And Tony Khan since then has had a pretty good track record when it comes to creative, in my opinion. So I think he was right to do that. But he could then now realistically have this conversation with Cody Rhodes and say, look, you can't book AEW because that's non-negotiable. And the money, unfortunately, we just can't match what you're looking for when it comes to the money. But what I can offer you is the same terms or maybe slightly improved terms from what you were on before. But you've got Ring of Honor here, and I need a booker for it because I'm still going to run it as a separate entity. It's going to be a developmental territory of sorts, if you believe the rumors. And if you want that, you can have it. You can be in control of that. You can be in control of the booking. Of course, I'll oversee it all because it's Tony Khan's investment. But you can be in charge of the booking. That would be something that I think would interest Cody Rhodes. I really do think it would, but I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't see that happening. I really don't. I think the most likely scenario is that he goes to WWE. I don't know if anything's been signed at this point, but for me, it just feels inevitable that that deal is pretty much done. If it's not signed, I think verbally it's probably a done deal. So if WWE Creative is working on it, then it's pretty much a done deal. So I think Cody's still going to go to WWE. And like I said, I think the most likely debut time, or return time rather, is on the Raw after Mania. Now, we have a big event tonight. No, not Impact Wrestling Sacrifice, which I am going to be doing a watch-along and post-show for, but it's WWE's live event at MSG. Now, this live event isn't televised, but they've been hyping it up on television the last couple of weeks, of course, when it comes to Brock Lesnar defending the WWE Championship. Now, WWE will return to Madison Square Garden in New York City later tonight for a special Road to WrestleMania 38 live event. Now, doors open at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. The show begins at 7:30. Tickets are still available via Ticketmaster. As of Wednesday, WrestleTix on Twitter reported that there were 2,960 available tickets for the show at Madison Square Garden, with 6,835 tickets distributed of a setup/capacity of 9,795. Now, there's still no word on right now who will challenge Brock Lesnar for that WWE Championship and who will challenge Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship in their respective matches. For what it's worth, the Wrestling Observer newsletter is reporting that WWE has planned to professionally film Lesnar's match, so the idea is something is going to happen tonight. Now, whether that something is something really significant, whether it's something that's going to be played on Raw or SmackDown or is going to dramatically change the outlook of WrestleMania, we don't know. But something storyline related is going to happen tonight, and that makes sense, of course, because they've been hyping it up on television for the last couple of weeks with Paul Heyman going, we're going to find you an opponent. If it's not Bobby Lashley, we'll have to find someone else, all that kind of stuff. And it's not going to be Bobby Lashley, of course. It's going to be someone else. But the fact that they're getting camera crews in to professionally film it, and to be honest, they actually film a lot of their live events anyway for Vince McMahon or people in the company to watch, all that kind of stuff, or just footage for social media. But to be professionally filmed means they've got something planned, something big planned, and I don't know what it's going to be. I can't see Brock Lesnar losing the WWE Championship because they're building it as the biggest WrestleMania match of all time. So if Brock loses the title, then it's not the biggest WrestleMania match of all time. We did have the biggest WrestleMania match of all time planned, but now we're not going to do it. How does that help things? Unless it's kind of the mindset of we got the ticket sold already, who cares what we put on? I don't know. But as we've seen on television, Paul Heyman has promised Lesnar will not leave tonight's Madison Square Garden show with the WWE Championship. At one point, Lesnar was advertised to face Bobby Lashley, while Reigns was advertised to face Seth Rollins. But both those matches have been pulled from the listing in the last week or so. So we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen. The fact that they've got camera crews there planned implies something big's going to happen. What that big thing is, time will tell. A big thing happened on SmackDown last night. We have a new Intercontinental Champion. Ricochet is the new Intercontinental Champion. Last night's SmackDown on Fox episode opened with Ricochet winning the title from Sami Zayn. The finish saw Jackass star Johnny Knoxville distract Sami Zayn, allowing Ricochet to finish him off. Now, of course, this is Ricochet's first run with the Intercontinental title. Zayn won the title back on February 11th. Edition of SmackDown just a few weeks ago, defeating Shinsuke Nakamura. He held the title for 13 recognized days, even though it was actually taped. It was slightly longer, but that's how long he held the title for. Good for Ricochet. I mean, this is the thing. In the past, I would have been really, excited for this and excited for Ricochet, but the Intercontinental title just means so little at the moment. It really means so little. Interesting, we've had 2 mid-card titles switch in the same week. Of course, Finn Balor won the US title on Raw. Ricochet wins the Intercontinental title on SmackDown. In terms of those being that they work. They are perfect mid-card champions, hopefully to elevate them into the main event. I don't know when it comes to Ricochet. Look, of course I'm a big Ricochet fan of what he can do in the ring. I've always been a fan of Ricochet's work in the ring. I think that there is a ceiling for him, and it shouldn't be, because you should look at it as, what are Ricochet's deficiencies? He can't cut a promo. His promos suck, and they just are terrible. And sometimes it has to do with the words he's given, the scripts and the promos he is given. The verbiage in them is awful, but also the way that he just says them is terrible as well. But to overcome that, the best thing to do is to get him a manager or a mouthpiece or something that could help that, facilitate that, or mask that. And WWE doesn't do that. But we knew something like this was going to come, because the reports were out there that Ricochet was the number 2 babyface on SmackDown, listed internally, so he was probably going to win the title, or he was going to get a push of some sort going forward. But as I mentioned before, that might sound good on the face of it. He's the number 2 babyface on SmackDown, but in reality, it's because they've got no babyfaces on that show. Like, Drew McIntyre's number 1, and he's facing Happy Corbin at WrestleMania. So your number 1 babyface listed internally on SmackDown, your number 1 babyface is facing Happy Corbin at WrestleMania. That's why it speaks volumes. It speaks absolute volumes. They are really struggling for babyfaces right now, WWE. Now you could say, well, what about Shinsuke Nakamura? What about Big E? Well, they're tag team partners. At one point, they were considered main eventers, but as with anything with WWE, they can't book babyfaces. They can't, unless your name's Brock Lesnar. Apart from that, they cannot do it. And eventually they get bored and the crowd turns and they move on. Now, coming out of that match, because of the interference from Johnny Knoxville, it's official. Sami Zayn will be facing Johnny Knoxville at WrestleMania 38. It will be happening on night 2, or as they're calling it, WrestleMania Sunday. We knew this match was going to happen anyway, so it was no real surprise. I suppose the good thing is that it's not for the Intercontinental title, but I think it also means that Johnny Knoxville is going to win, and because celebrities win, right? Celebrities, they're like Goldberg. Celebrities are undefeated when it comes to wrestling matches. The celebrity never loses, right? Never. The celebrity always wins and comes in and beats the established wrestler. The first time a celebrity's done it, they should beat someone that's been doing it for 20 years, because that's wrestling logic. That's how it always works. So the fact that Sami Zayn dropped the Intercontinental title says to me that he's probably going to lose. Thank God it doesn't mean we're going to get a Johnny Knoxville Intercontinental title reign, because there is no way, and I mean this, no way that WWE didn't consider it. They absolutely 100% at some point thought, you know what? What if we put the belt on him? It means nothing anyway, because the way it's booked, so why not? So the fact that they have gone in a different direction, I'm glad of. But we're going to get that match at WrestleMania. The fact, Johnny Knoxville's medical history, that's another debate to get into. But Sami Zayn, look, good for him in the sense that he's always entertaining. He always does a good job. And look, it's a celebrity match. It's a gimmick match. But it's a spotlight. Sami Zayn, it's a spotlight on Sami Zayn. So good for him. Good for him. Speaking of WrestleMania matches as well, we know the opponent for Pat McAfee. It's Austin Theory for now. Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory is now official for WrestleMania 38. Last night on Fox for SmackDown, Theory came down to the ringside area while taunting McAfee on the mic. Theory bragged about being the protege of WWE Chairman and CEO Vince McMahon, who was backstage for the show. Theory then said McMahon only appeared on the Pat McAfee show this week to set McAfee up. Theory said Vince doesn't like McAfee and thinks he's just another loudmouth like everyone else does. Theory then went to ringside as McAfee got up to face off with him. Theory then announced that he is McAfee's WrestleMania opponent and immediately smacked him in the face, knocking the headset off. Theory made his exit while laughing as McAfee stood at the top of the announce table, yelling at him and seething. Michael Cole later confirmed Theory versus McAfee for the grandest stage of them all. I mean, Vince McMahon versus Pat McAfee is the rumored one. Whether or not they pivot to that, I don't know. I mean, if it was Vince McMahon versus Pat McAfee, and that was the announced match, it was going to be Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory anyway, regardless of the announcement of Vince McMahon. So that's what we're going to get. It might be changed on Raw on Monday that, hey, why did you do that? You're not facing Pat McAfee at WrestleMania, because I am. They'll do something like that. That will be the promo. That will be the segment. But it's still going to be Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory at WrestleMania. That's what's going to happen. But the segment was fine, and I still think the interview was great. I did enjoy the interview. I very much did. I do want to talk about the plans for the unified WWE Championship following WrestleMania, because new details have been revealed on what WWE has planned for the WWE Champion Brock Lesnar and Universal Champion Roman Reigns coming out of their winner-take-all unification bout at WrestleMania 38. It was recently reported that there is a feeling within WWE that one champion is not feasible for Raw and SmackDown in the modern environment, mainly because of the networks Fox and USA Network wanting their own champion. In an update, the Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that the winner of Lesnar vs. Reigns will be crowned the new unified WWE champion, but internally it's already conceded that a single champion is temporary. Quote, it will change from one champion again because it's not plausible, not for either schedule, not for the networks, not for the long term, according to a WWE source. There's no word yet on how WWE is going to go back to having two champions or how long they'll have a single champion. Of course, if we get any more news about that, we'll talk about it on the channel. But my concern is, this is my worry, I've got a couple. WWE's last way of overcoming a title issue was Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair on SmackDown, where they just swapped the titles. Let's just swap the titles. So I'm concerned that Roman Reigns wins at WrestleMania and then comes out on Raw with both bouts and just drops it and goes, I don't want the WWE title. See you later, have it on Raw. And then it's vacant. And what does that do for Raw? What does that do for the WWE Championship? Nothing. So I don't know what they do with that. I don't. And the issue is when WWE is forced to be creative, a lot of the time they come up very short of the mark. So I don't know. I really don't know about that one. We'll wait and see. Finally, we have an update as well when it comes to Battle Royals for this year's WrestleMania. WWE is set to bring back the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal and the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal this year. Of course, WWE often uses these Battle Royals to give WrestleMania spots to the wrestlers who aren't booked in their own programs on the grander stage of them all, and that will be the case again this year. The current plans call for the third WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal to take place during Night 1 or Night 2 of WrestleMania. However, the Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that the 8th Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal will not take place on WrestleMania, but it is scheduled to happen this year. Of course, last year, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal took place on SmackDown on the Friday before WrestleMania. It was noted that actually this year, the Andre Battle Royal will take place during the Go Home edition of Raw on March 28th from Pittsburgh, or the Go Home edition of SmackDown on April 1st from Dallas. I would probably think it would probably be on the Friday like it was last year, but we'll wait and see when it comes to that one. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestle News 365, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.